Easy guys, Careless here, and today I want to talk about the Tournament of Power, specifically techniques. Now, over Dragon Ball Super's history, we have seen a lot of nostalgia, especially in such things as the female Broly that's being introduced, the Devil Explosion Wave that was in episode 91, and the Solar Flare times 100, which was done by Krillin in... Sorry, comments, you can shoot me on that. I'm pulling that straight out of my back end. But besides the point, there have been a lot of old mixed with new. And I'm really curious to see what they could possibly bring forward into the tournament. Now, I have specifically 5 techniques that I want to talk about. But of course, if you have any that I don't mention, or any combination of them that you think would be cool to see, please leave them down in the comments. Because I do read them, and I'm definitely interested to know what you think. Now, I'm going to start off with kind of a funny one, but one that could potentially have, like, good ramifications for Universe 7. I'm going to start with the Clothes Beam. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're going to be like, Careless, Clothes Beam? What could I possibly do with this? Well, I think you could do just about anything with this. This ability, from what I could gather, for I did a little bit of research, there isn't really much on it. It's essentially creating something from virtually nothing. Now, we've seen King Kai do it when he created the gi for Goku, and I think he's the only other person we've seen kind of do it. So it's kind of a magic ability, just to give you a little bit of a rundown of how it works. It's kind of a magic ability. It runs within the Dragon Clan of the Namekians, which Shocker Piccolo is part of. And although he's a warrior, he doesn't really tap into this ability all that often. But he is a master strategist, and he will use all his abilities to his advantage. So I don't see why he wouldn't use this ability. And especially after he fused with Kami, that means he would have got all the experience and knowledge that Kami had as well. And so he should have a ton of ideas and possibilities at hand. Now, besides the obviously kind of gag we could have with this, which would be doing like repairing people's clothes, which may be a thing he might do. Piccolo's more of a serious character. I really don't see that being a thing, but he could create weapons. Now, I know you're going to be, well, none of them use weapons, and you're kind of right, they don't. But they could make something else, which I will reference later on. And of course, there are things he could make that I probably haven't even thought of. But I've got one specifically I'll mention later. So keep that in mind. Now, after the Clothes Beam, and that's kind of the only really silly one, the rest I actually think could be quite feasible. I'm going to go in with Drunken Fist. Now, this isn't like a special technique in the truest sense of the word. This is a discipline of martial arts. And I think there's no reason why Master Roshi couldn't bring this back. So, we all know what Drunken Fist is, right? For those who maybe aren't too aware, Drunken Fist is just pretending to be drunk, and in doing so throwing off your opponent because your moves are unpredictable. He did this during the World Tournament as Jackie Chun in Dragon Ball, and it's one of my favourite fight scenes. So I would love to see this to come back, because as we know, Master Roshi is by far nowhere near the strongest that Universe 7 have. It's just the case. Do you know what I mean? If you look at the roster, he's probably sitting there somewhere at the comfortable bottom, maybe on par with Tien and Krillin. We just don't know quite what the scaling is going to be, but he's definitely somewhere in the bottom half of it. And because of this, I really see Master Roshi outsmarting his opponents rather than just brute forcing them in the same way that Vegeta, Gohan, and Goku will do. And so I think it's logical that he would use a technique like this that maybe others aren't aware of, because then he could basically pop out of nowhere and they would be like, what's he doing? Totally throw his opponent off and give himself the advantage. And I really think that this is probably one they will have. Now, going on from this one is another technique I want to see. This one, not so much. I'm like, it'd be cool if we saw it, but I think it might upset the fan base, would be Hypnosis. This is again a technique that we saw mostly in Dragon Ball. And it's Chaozu that has this ability by freezing his opponents. And Master Roshi used it against one of his opponents as well. I believe he used it against Wolfman. I believe it's Wolfman. I think it's Wolfman. And again, this would be about outsmarting your opponents. So we saw that some of the fighters from Universe 10 who are hanging out with Gawasu are like, muscle, protein, and you're just like, they don't appear to have much upstairs. Now, it'd be clever if it actually turned out that Master Roshi could basically control them in a kind of roundabout fashion to sow disorder and throw off his team. And they're like, why is he fighting their own team? Because you got to remember, Universe 7 are literally, all the other universes are out for their throw. So it'd be interesting to see if they could do that in such a way to give Universe 7 an open. So moving on from that, I would like to see Boo's chocolate bean. Now, I know there are some things going on, and so the teaser for the last episode implied that maybe something's going on with Boo, so it's highly possible that we might not see this technique, but I would love to see this technique. This technique is really strong. In fact, probably the strongest one that any of them have. I would argue that in some ways this is stronger than Kaioken, yeah? Which I know will probably be like, trigger the chat, but it just is, yeah? It can hit multiple targets, completely incapacitating them, minimal effort, and he can bring them back. It isn't a killing move unless he eats them and absorbs them in the process. So imagine, chocolate beams them all and then uses a demon clap, like what we saw Goku use against Chi-Chi in the Dragon Ball tournament, and they all get knocked off the edge. Good way to clear out the fluff, leaving only the really strong fighters left, which of course would have either been clever enough to dodge or deflect such technique. This would clear out all the chaff, and we'd be left down with the real hardcore fights, which will end on like 1v1s or 2v2. I really don't think that this technique should be ignored or disregarded, because it has incredible potential to really change how the tournament would flow. So yeah, that's what I think. Now we're going to go with the very, very last one, and this is the one I think that is most likely if we're going to see any of the ones that I've mentioned today. Now, remember when I said about the clothes beam, right? We can't use items. Or if he created it, it could be kind of technically a bending because it was made by a technique. If it's made by a technique, how is it any different from a Kamehameha? I mean, based on that logic, he could create Potara earrings. Now, this could be the most powerful use of clothes beams we have ever seen, yeah? And in doing so, we would have fusion. This is a technique that most people would love to see come back. And we would then get Vegito in the Tournament of Power, maybe going toe-to-toe with Toppo and Jiren at the same time. Now, I don't know about you, but a 2v1 handicap with Vegito Blue is a fight I will definitely watch. Yeah? And I will probably have like a semi-erection all the way through it. Just because of how ridiculously cool that fight could have the potential to be. Now, let's just throw away the idea that Potara would be thrown out and it would be banned straight away. Because it's Goku, though, they get like a smooth pass and they don't get instantly disqualified and erased. We could still see fusion via Gogeta. Now, I would love Gogeta. I don't know about you, but we'd finally have a canon example of Gogeta. I mean, the only way that this could kind of be an issue is if you factored in the fact that maybe, just maybe, Vegeta doesn't know the technique. Now, if he doesn't know the technique, he could be taught it. He's an incredibly proficient fighter and has shown to be able to learn abilities pretty much on the fly. He learned to sense ki after realizing that humans could do it. And in one real, like, long fight, learned to actually figure out how to do this. So there's no way of saying that he's not quick to learn. But he has seen this technique actually happen. So he's seen Goten and Trunks fuse. At least in Revival of F. I'm not aware if he saw it in Z. I don't remember. But he definitely saw it in Battle of Gods. He definitely saw it. And of course, he spent 3 years in the hyperbolic time chamber with Goku. I mean, besides fighting and eating, they must have had a discussion about something at some point. I mean, you don't spend 3 years in silence. I don't care if you are a Saiyan. Yeah, that's just not a thing that happens. So, obviously, within that 3 years, it's possible that he could have shown him the dance. I'm not suggesting that they will have done it. And then this would be incredibly cool if we got to see it, because this would have been then backing up the foreshadowing we saw in Revival of F, when Whis says to Beerus, if they fought together, they'd be an incredibly strong team. And then we'd finally get to see that paid off in the Tournament of Power, when it matters the most. I don't know about you, but I want to see Gogeta. Hashtag, we need Gogeta in the Tournament of Power, down below, if you've made it this far. Of course, If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. And of course, I've already asked once before, but if you have a technique that you want to see, leave that down there as well. And until next time, guys, I'm Careless. Peace.